Hello and welcome back to Podular Modcast. My name is Tim Held and I'm very excited to bring you this week's episode. I'm very excited to bring you this week's episode with Twin Shadow and Josh Ascalon. And we talk about so many different things on this episode, and we are going to get into that in a moment. But first, I'd like to thank everybody who supports me on Patreon. And if you've been listening to the show for the last few months, you know I've been teasing this giveaway thing that I'm going to do. I've been waiting to see if I could snag one of the old prototypes of my new module coming out to include in the giveaway, and I have. I got it. And the way I do this is I post on the Patreon page, hey, first come, first serve, comment, and choose one of the boxes in the picture, and it's yours. And in those boxes, there will be a homemade cassette tape that I made of what I think are my best songs, a Sky Gas cassette tape. You remember Sky Gas, aka old co-host Ian? Amazing album, so I got some copies of that to give away, some blank panels, patch cables, stickers. One of the boxes will have a module in it, and that module is the first prototype of my upcoming module that is going to be released with After Later Audio this year. It's quite a bit different from the final product, and it's the only one that exists in the entire world, so somebody's gonna get that. Also, I included a bunch of like 0 HP passive low pass gates and all sorts of really fun goodies, and there are 6 boxes. So if you already support me on Patreon, then thank you very much. Be on the lookout. I would turn your notifications on for when I make posts there. And if you would like to sign up, you have till the end of this week, because next week I'm posting and I'm shipping out. So once again, thank you to anybody who supports me on Patreon. I'd like to say thank you to all the show's sponsors: 4MS, After Later Audio, PATCHWERKS, Signal Sounds, Expert Sleepers, Novation, and knobula. That's a lot of sponsors, which is great. So thank you to all of them, and please see all the links in the show description for their amazing products. Speaking of amazing products, why don't we dive into this system and check some of them out? Some of you might remember me talking about my work cart that I've converted into my mobile rig. I thought I would just give you a little update on its current configuration. I've got the Future Retro 777 analog bass synth. It's amazing. I've got the Novation circuit tracks, which I just recently got, and I'm really liking it. So the circuit tracks is going to act as my hub, my kind of control forge. It's sequencing the Future Retro. I've got the sync output from the circuit tracks going into the Neo Trinity from Bastel, which I plan to use to spread all sorts of clocked modulation and triggers throughout the whole system. So on the bottom level, you can see I've got my guitar pedals, one of which is the Ghost Rider from Recovery Effects. It actually takes your guitar signal and turns that into MIDI information. And I've got that running into the Chord Pilot from knobula that is then going into the Polycinematic from knobula. Moved the Strega up here. Then I've got the Mystic from Recovery Effects. Another tiny 4MS pod here with the 4MS DIY sampler. The Acid Rain Technology Switchblade. And then up to this row, I've got my ES9. As you can see, I've got the 1/4 inch cables coming out, and I've actually got, just under the Future Retro, you can't see it on screen, but I've got a miniature patch bay so I can, you know, route signals in all sorts of different ways. And then I've got a prototype that I'm not going to talk about right now, the Nautilus from Qubit, Spherical Wavetable Navigator from 4MS, the Buchla Tip Top Source of Uncertainty, the Shuffling Clock Multiplier and Mini Peg from 4MS, Clock Divider from Dopefer, the Mystic Circuits Tree and Leaves. I got a G&T, which is the Gate and Triggers module from After Later Audio, and then I've got my Injector from BoardBrain. This is my guitar running into that, and this has a built-in amp simulator on it. And then right here, I've got the percussion interface and expander from 4MS, and I'm running the Future Retro into that so I can generate envelopes and gates with the audio signal coming out of that. The OTA VCF from AI Synthesis. Then of course, you've heard me talk about this one a lot, one of my favorite modules. The Shape Dual Envelope VCA from 4MS, the Envelope VCA from 4MS, the Bastel Basil, the Aurora from Qubit, my new module, it's hopefully going to be coming out soon this year, Keanu, of course the Neo Trinity, I just got the Earthquaker Devices wave transformer, and I'm gonna show you a little patch I made with that in the Trinity here in a moment. And then the Aikido from Bastel, one of my favorite mixer modules I've ever used. Then the Mojave from Qubit. I've got the Canyon from Afterlater Audio and the Polycinematic and Chord Pilot, as I mentioned earlier. For those of you wondering what those pedals down there are, I've got the Cutting Room Floor from Recovery Effects, the Sound Destruction Device from Recovery Effects, and the Grizzled Mighty from Recovery Effects. And then the only non-recovery pedal I even own is my octave pedal from Boss. And then I mentioned the Ghostwriter. I've got a cool little patch cable hanger here, and I'm feeling pretty good about this current setup. So let's do a little jam with it. At the end of the episode, we will check in on that track that I showed you on last week's episode. I've made some changes, and I think it's starting to turn into a pretty cool tune. So stick around after the interview if you want to check that out. But yeah, let's just get into this. I actually am turning 40 in like 2.5 weeks or something.
Damn. Okay.
So, yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with it.
Welcome to the
Ain't nothing wrong with it. You gotta. Depends where you're at 40 is what I think. But like, you're feeling good about your life. This is
the bedroom in the house that my wife and I bought that she allowed me to create, make my studio in. So that's pretty fucking cool. No complaints.
That sounds like a good place to be when you turn 40. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. If you showed me this at 12, I'd be like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
The good thing about George, 40 is that you don't ever, like, no one really thinks that you're going through a phase anymore. They're just like, oh, this is how this fool.
This is who you are. Yeah, totally.
This is a person.
Time.
That's funny. I've never thought of that, but I actually feel that, like, no, like, I'm just fucking, like, all the performative weird shit that I may have done growing up is like, no, I'm kind of weird, but like. In the same way that you guys are weird, I can tell by the backdrops. Like, we have similar backdrops here. George, could you put a little more gain on your mic? What's that?
Lower gain?
No, a little higher, a little more.
Oh, more gain. Sure. How's that?
There we go. Yeah. I was kind of losing you once we were all going, but that's my job. I'm the host, and look we're not even like doing a show yet. And here we are like a minute and a half into recording. I really appreciate y'all joining me today. George, it's funny. There's been a handful of times throughout, the podcast over the last 6 years where somebody will start following me and I'll be like, did their account get hacked? Because I don't think they're following me. So yeah, I had to send you a message. You're like, is this really you, dude? So that was really cool. Just like every once in a while to see like a follow pop up that's like, somebody that's, like not just in the modular scene, that's in the greater, worldwide music scene and stuff. So yeah, I'm glad that we made that connection. And then talked about having you and Josh to come on to talk about what you guys are doing together. And since we only have an hour and there are two of you, I want to kind of do a truncated version of what we usually do. It's just kind of a little of a backstory. However you want to take this question, but like, when did it go from a listener to like, I want to be a participant? And was it a certain band or a certain experience or anything? So why don't we start with Josh, and then we'll get on to your guys' collaboration after that.
Cool. Yeah, I think like most probably a good percentage of people like us, I got my first guitar at around 12 for my birthday, a Hohner Rockwood, which I still have. It's the only guitar I still own.
Oh wow.
A Rockwood Strat copy. Played that for a while. Got a drum set, started playing that, which made my parents very happy because they always knew where it was.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then I got my first synthesizer at 15. It was a Korg EX8000, which I still have to this day, and love. And then I just started making music, had an MMT8 sequencer that I still have today, and just started like collect. Like those are I'm literally naming like the only things I still have today.
I don't have anything I was just talking to like one of my my nieces or nephews asked me like, how many guitars do you have? And I said, well, right now, or how many have I had in my life? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I have 4 or 5 right now, but I've probably owned 40 to 50 guitars because I'm the magpie that collects and trades. Like, in fact, I'm in the process of a couple trades right now, like on OfferUp and Craigslist, just like scheming. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to give you props on still how, like, there are a few old guitars. I had a Harmony Explorer. It was like black with like red. And it was, it was obviously like not a great guitar. Harmony does good stuff now, but I think then they were kind of a budget brand. And man, I wish I still had that one. But
yeah, well, I didn't. I mean, I'm telling you about the things I still have, but I didn't tell you about the long list, like the the EML 101 that I stole from my high school closet because they had one for some reason. And then when I wanted to get a Mac at 17, I had a Nordlead 2 and nice. A couple other random things, and then an EML 101. And I was like, which one should I sell to get my Mac?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's let's just say I made the wrong decision in hindsight. Yeah. And I still am haunted by that. I actually literally, before we got it on, my friend just texted me that someone's selling their EML 101, and I was like, man.
Yeah. Sorry. So where's the transition into modular? Because like you're into Buchla stuff, so you went in, so I also see you got a Rhodes there. God damn, I'm jealous.
Yeah, that's like I've actually played. I've had that Rhodes for like 2 or 3 years, and I've played it for maybe 15 minutes. Like, I'm just like I have it. It's just like one of those things that like I have it. It's there when I want it. Like one day I'll sit there like as an old man with a glass of brandy and just sit there playing the Rhodes. That's
kind of how this upright is for me. It's actually my friend converted it. He's a piano technician, and we went and picked this up, and he converted it into an una corda. So like rather than having 3 strings per key, it's just 1. So it has like this. Yeah. So if you play with the damper pedal and really soft, it kind of has like harpy, plucky sound. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't play it as often as I'd like to. But.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to play keyboards, so it's like I want to learn.
Yeah, I'm not super good at it either. So yeah, I didn't.
Even though it's been my quote unquote my main instrument for 20 years, it's like I have no idea.
I feel bad that I didn't realize using the contact una corda samples forever now, especially on scoring stuff. I didn't realize that that's why it's called that it's 1 string.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. I didn't either. I just, because I'd heard it from like Nils Fromm and watched some videos of him playing like that one that's like elevated. It's like, because the strings are so long and shit. Yeah. Like, so this doesn't sound quite like that, but I still like to call it the una corda. So.
Well, George, you gotta go up. You gotta go up north and book a session with Tim next time you're working with that contact.
Yeah. If you ever pass in between Portland and Seattle, just stop in Tacoma and we can do a little jam session.
Nice. I'd love that. I'd love that.
So where does it turn into modular? I'm always curious how people find modular, like, you know, because it's especially like if you found it a while ago.
Yeah, so I was just very into synths like my whole life, and you know I got into sound design for film. Like I was producing and engineering and stuff like that. Me and George ran a studio together in Brooklyn a long time ago, and I was always using synths and stuff and analog everything and samplers, all that. And to be honest with you, like I had a lot of friends with Eurorack and don't like. I'm not hating at all because I do love Eurorack, but I remember just they'd always come by and I'd be like, just doesn't sound good, you know. It's like compared to like my like MS-20 or like like my original MS-20 or like any of the like vintage stuff I had. I was like, it just doesn't sound as good. Like so, I wasn't really interested for a long time. And then it wasn't actually till the pandemic. Like so like since we're such a huge part of my life, and I just love programming, I would sit there just for hours programming, you know, just making sounds. And till the pandemic, actually a friend of mine here in New York, named A.K. Stromer, he has a company called Stromer Mutronics that make like guitar pedals and stuff like that. But he built this like rad like 5U synth with like some stuff he just made from schematics and some stuff from like U-synth boards and stuff like that. And it was just this giant fucking towering like metal faceplate with labels on it. And I was like, and he was like selling it for like so cheap. And I was just on Craigslist, you know, I didn't know him at the time. And I just like was like, yo, this is so cool. I was like, yeah, I'll take that from you. And then we became friends. And so I started with that. And that just kind of got me, then I got into Euro. Actually, the thing that got me into Eurorack, I mean, I took the natural path, right? You know, it's like, it was the stuff that I couldn't get out of my analog stuff and the vintage stuff, like the panharmonium, like, you know, Rossum panharmonium.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff like that.
I had that. That's something I really regret getting rid of because that thing was really cool.
Yeah, that's something that's like, it's especially as a sound designer, that's like my secret. That's like,
totally.
This is the worst. I always keep it secret. I'm like, oh, I can't tell you what my secret weapon, yet I'm saying it on, you know, the probably the least best place to say what my secret weapon is. But yeah, it was that sort of stuff that got me. And the, you know, like some of the synth tech stuff, like the Hyperion processor and stuff like that. I was like, oh damn, it's like basically like an Eventide with CV. So that was like what initially got me interested in modular, just because I was like, this stuff doesn't exist in any other format, you know?
Right.
So then, you know, I built like a fucking, sorry, can we curse? Is that I don't know.
Fucking yeah. Dude.
Okay, cool. This ain't ABC. I built a, you know, stereotypical giant Eurorack. You know, I happened to be very fortunate in that I was working steadily during the pandemic somehow. So, I just had, you know, I did the deep dive into Eurorack. And
so many people did too. It's true. I mean, perfect time to like learn a complicated new method of making music, you know? So
totally. And then, and then I started just kind of like, I started gravitating towards like the West Coast, you know, style stuff, like, and then some of the random source surge stuff. And I started like really like liking the way, so I built like a Buchla system, like a, you know, West Coast system within Eurorack. And that like was what I really liked, like the challenge of that and like kind of like the way they all operate. And then I just like one day I was just like, I started, I traded for like a surge panel, like a CGS Bog, you know? And I was like, okay, this is what I want. So I sold all my Eurorack, built like a huge, you know, like 8-panel surge. I didn't build it, I bought it. Then I started building. I was like, oh wait, you could just build this stuff for like much cheaper. So then I started building. And then you know, then Buchla came in and I traded all my surge stuff for Buchla, but luckily now I'm building and now I'm building back my surge system. So it's I love I love every system has its own thing. What I love about Buchla specifically is that it's really what the problem with I think a lot of Eurorack is that it's just different manufacturers doing their own thing, and you know, a lot of them are great and then they're in their own right, but it doesn't feel like a instrument, you know. It feels like just like a collection of things. I think Buchla, and I think why widely regarded as, you know, one of the best synth designers, is because when you're playing a bookless system, anything from an easel or just, you know, like a, you know, like a 200 system, or, you know, the 200E, which I don't have any the 200E stuff, it's all 200 and 100. You feel like everything is very, makes so much sense that you have a relationship with it almost in the same way you would like a guitar or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what really drew me to Buchla. Yeah.
That's been my constant like uphill battle with Eurorack, because like I mean, obviously you get into it for the modular aspect and the idea of building your own synth, but the amount of time I spend taking stuff out and reconfiguring and building mini systems. I mean, I have to, you know, also like do demos that people send me stuff, which is really cool because I couldn't afford to buy all this stuff. So I'm in a privileged position there. But I have been being like, it's funny. I went into Eurorack, you know, and I think I just had to get my feet wet and understand it all. And now, like over the past like year and a half, kind of go like taking what I've got from this and what I want from this and integrating it with, you know, like I got a circuit tracks from Novation, which is way fucking more powerful and cool than it like I expected it to be, because you know, it's smaller and it's pretty affordable. And then the CP series or the Reface series from Yamaha, like I just got the YC organ. That thing is fucking rad. So yeah, I'm just like and then guitar, I'm like really I'm using this as a glorified effect. Like this patch that's built behind me is all just a glorified effects processor for my guitar right now. So
nice. Yeah, I got it. I got a guitar, George. I showed you that thing, the Ibanez metal like Strat or whatever. That 80s. Yeah. And I was like, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever, like aesthetically, it's just like, you know, it was like their Ibanez in the 80s. It was their, sorry, not Ibanez, Fender. Sorry, it was a Fender's metal Strat.
With like the Floyd Rose and stuff?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was like clearly they're trying to compete with the Ibanez's and like all the stuff that was big then.
It's like, hey, Ingve Malmkramers.
Yeah. Oh, is that what he played?
I think he did play a Fender Strat like that
with the routed out fretboard.
Yeah. Like, and Billy Sheehan did that with his P bass too, which is I always wondered like what the fuck that was all about. But right on, dude. Well, it sounds like many stories I've heard. It sounds kind of like my story too. Like just selling all the stuff to get the real stuff, and now I'm in the process of trying to get some of the old stuff back. And
cliche. The only thing now I'm like transitioning, and because I'm able to like build the Buchla stuff and the Surge stuff, it's a lot cheaper. So now I'm like. And I don't like spending money on stuff anymore. So I've been really into like some of the kind of like, I would say maybe slightly overlooked like late 80s, early 90s synths, you know? Okay. Like I just got an ESQ1, which I think is like, you can still get them for like $350. And I think they're like one of the coolest sounding synths, you know, I own. I just got a D550, the Enya synth.
Okay.
It's like those kind of synths, and I think like it's like as much as I love modular and will always, you know, I can't imagine it not being a part of my life. It's like I'm starting to like kind of go back to like, you know, like find these different eras of synths that are really, really quality, interesting instruments. And they're not like worth a lot, so you could get them for cheap.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
That's like
I had a Kawai like rack synth for a bit that was so early 90s sounding, but like I made it work. I think I made one of my best albums with that as like my primary voice, but just running it through fuzz pedals and shit, just like making
totally. I love the Kawai stuff. Recently I did some live shows, and I was the only poly synth I used was a Kawai like Casio tone thing that I got for $50.
Nice.
But it had the synth engine of the K1, the Kawai K1, but was encoded in 8-bit, which to me is just like, and it was like the most beautiful sounding, just like piece of shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's just like throw some reverb on it, and it's like it just sounds like a freaking Oberheim or something. You know, it's
totally.
just like it's or you know, an Oberheim if it was, you know, on a black and white TV that was distorted.
Right, yeah, played through like an AM radio or something.
Totally.
I often feel like there is actually no such thing as good or bad sound. it's actually that what we qualify as good is something that surprises us, you know?
Yeah, I
And
totally
so
agree with that.
it's really just, you know, when warm, fuzzy, it's funny. I keep seeing all these plugin companies who are making like warm, wobbly synths, you know? And I'm just like, oh, that sounds so fucking boring to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's like when things are warm and fuzzy constantly, and no, of course, no hate at all to like Tame Impala drums, but if I hear another fat snare, I'm gonna lose it. You know, I just want cold, frigid, like spine tingling cold snares now.
Snares are like the hardest for me to like get right.
Oh, I just go the opposite of whatever, and you'll be like, oh, that's
yeah.
nice.
I usually
I'm back on my HR16 snares, and I'm just like, I'm like, these hurt, and that's what I want. I don't want soft, cozy snares anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I want them to,
you know. And I was guilty of that forever. I was always trying to find that, and then then you heard those Tame Impala records, and you're like, God damn it.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. I mean, I love that you brought up like, I mean, kind of like to rephrase what you just said, like, you know, good is kind of in the eye of the beholder, and I am so much more interested in something that sonically fits whatever thing that I'm working on at the time. And I don't care what piece of gear it comes from. Like that same album that I'm referring to, because I was so restricted gear wise and, you know, just didn't have money to buy anything. I wanted, like, I was using like plugins that aren't effects, you know, like noise reducers and like anti-hiss and stuff, and and I was recording with my electric guitar unplugged into the mic on my MacBook, and then throwing a bunch of weird process, and then it just did not sound like a guitar, and I was like, this is an interesting sound, but it's a free plugin, you know, or well, it's free to me. It was definitely like a pirated Logic program, you know. But yeah, it worked. So I was just like, I feel like having those limitations really, really can feed your innovative and creative problem solving side. And I think that's where a lot of the best stuff comes, as far as like finding your own voice as a musician goes. Yeah, I mean, that's totally. I mean, I think I've heard that echoed so many times. Like I felt that way, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. I should like spread the word. And then I've talked to people for the last 6 years, and it's like, oh yeah, a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
So George, can we get your quick backstory here, and then we can talk about your guys' collab and all that?
Yeah, sure. It's so long, and so I'm gonna be extra short. You know, I grew up, growing up I was born in the Dominican Republic and grew up in Florida. And growing up in Florida, I think I had this unique, and being from a Dominican family, I had this unique sort of like situation where I was sort of bombarded by a lot of influences from every direction.
Yeah, I'd imagine like by the time you're going to school and stuff, you're literally like in between two different cultures and two different cultural references and everything.
Totally. So it's like if my parents weren't listening to like a lot of bachata and salsa and Dominican music in the house, or my mom loved Sade, and my dad loved Procol Harum and like other like weird sort of nerdier 70s rock, prog rock music. He really loved Jethro Tull and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, what's that? A Wider Shade of Pale. I mean, like, that's one of the greatest fucking songs. That organ and everything.
It's funny. I admitted to someone recently that the problem with me sharing my Spotify Wrapped is that it's mostly just my music, and then Wider Shade of Pale. and I'm just like, if people saw my Spotify Wrapped, they just think I'm a psycho, you know?
Yeah.
But So I had a lot of different. I had a lot of different influences, and then the Florida thing, you know, like just sort of like country music, just anything like redneck adjacent. So like a lot of like really bad 90s rock music.
Oh, dude.
Um,
Yeah, me too.
you know, bands like Seven Dust, a lot of new metal,
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of you know, and I sort of, I don't know what it was, but being also sort of a hybrid human in a way, I sort of like everything had the same amount of value to me. So it was like Boys to Men was my favorite band, but so was Pearl Jam and Nirvana.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I had this thing when I was young, and I still have. Sometimes it's got sort of a problem in my music life. Is like where I just can't really pick a genre to be in, or a place to stay.
I relate to that.
But it has to do with the fact that even as a young kid, I really just didn't understand the difference between Boys to Men and Nirvana. I really genuinely like. I didn't ever draw a line on it. It was sort of, you know, going through middle school and high school where you sort of saw how people divided themselves based on these sort of musical opinions or whatever.
And form identities at that age. And like, especially for 80s, 90s kids when like MTV was at its prime, and, you know, it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's funny because, you know, we can wax poetic about those times and be really happy, be really sad that we don't live at a time where like the industry really knew how to package genre. But I'm kind of like, it's kind of more interesting right now because you're not like, you don't have MTV being like, which side are you on?
Right. You know, there's been stuff lately that I've listened to that I'm like, wait, what is this? Like it's clearly pop, but it's also clearly like indie bedroom produced. Like somebody that comes to mind is Grace Ives. I'm not sure if you've heard of Grace Ives, but
I haven't.
It's some of the best like indie bedroom pop I've ever heard. I fucking love it. And
cool.
And she's just like she's like an amazing like producer. She does all of her own stuff. She's funny. But like when I first heard it, I'm like, is this for like people who like, is this for people who like Katy Perry, or is this for me? And then, you know, I caught myself kind of thinking like that. And it's like, that's not even a real question, you know, like
not at all.
That's just this thing in your head that, yeah. Well, so
completely. And, you know, but what I feel very much happy about is that there's something in me that never, I just never drew those lines. I certainly did when, so after, basically what the point of me bringing that up was that I originally wanted so badly to be like an R&B singer. Like I wanted to be in a boy band R&B group, you know, like Boys to Men or whatever. But then what happened was a friend gave me a cassette tape, or she copied a cassette tape of Green Day Dookie. And I was just like, wait a second. I want to play guitar.
Yeah.
And I was playing saxophone in I had gotten in trouble in school in like 7th grade, and I had to like add extra classes to my day, which just sounds fucked up, and I don't even know if what they were doing was okay, but I basically kind of tricked the principal to allow me to take a band class. So I got in the 8th grade band in 7th grade and started playing saxophone. So I had like 2 years of band. And during that time, there was this guy who was playing guitar, and he would play Radiohead songs all the time. And I was never really a huge Radiohead fan, but like I just like saw how much attention he got. Everyone would just crowd around him at his feet. And I was like, it was like between that and the Dookie tape, like playing in my sister's like Toyota Tercel. I was like, I have to learn how to play this instrument, you know.
And that's where Twin Shadow was born.
And I did my best to to get him to teach me, and he didn't not want to share the popularity.
Yeah. Oh no.
So
no.
I had to find it my own way, you know. And I actually, it's funny. It's very pretentious of me, but I used to walk. My dad had a guitar in the closet, and I would sort of steal it out of his closet. He was very like gatekeepy about this Martin guitar that he had. And I would just take it from his closet, and I would just take it class to class. I didn't know how to play it. I just would just
as an ornament. Yeah.
Cool.
That's your accessory for your fashion accessory.
My entire freshman year, you didn't see me without that guitar case. You rarely saw it out, but I just walked around with it and just pretended. And so anyway, that essentially, that's how I'm going to tie this story up. I basically pretended my way into becoming a musician. And it's sort of how I approach most everything. I sort of like to, envision myself as the dream, and then figure it out later. Mm-hmm. And
man, I'm relating to so much of what you're saying. Like, I feel like we've had a very similar like journey and thought process through it. Yeah,
yeah. It's just it's been so interesting that way, because it's all been about desire, you know. It's desire to be popular, desire, then that evolves into desire to pretend, and then desire to learn so that you're not no one
pretending.
You. You know, not getting caught. Getting caught. And it's really how I've done everything. And it's funny because, it's part of the reason why I admire Josh so much, and is that we've known each other for so long. And I distinctly, one of my favorite things is like memories of Josh when we were like in our 20s in Brooklyn. And it was like watching Josh plug things in and being like, holy shit, he knows what he's doing. because I'm the opposite. I'm sort of like, I just smash things into holes that don't,
Same here. Until something sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I rely a lot on getting lucky. And not that luck, not to say that luck doesn't mean anything. Luck is an extension of desire, you know?
And having the foresight to know when it's happening and take advantage of it or follow it in the right way, you know?
Yeah.
Like I think you could kind of tie all of this into modular and life in general. Because I'm the exact same way. Like I like, people around me know this, but like I never did sound design before for film or anything like that. And then I moved to LA briefly or for a few years. And I just started calling myself a sound designer one day. And I literally knew nothing about it. But I
if you turn a frequency knob on a filter, though, you're a sound designer, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, technically, yeah, for sure. But like,
this sounds like the excuse for every DJ in LA. But
okay. But I just like, it was like that thing about exactly kind of, you worded it better, but like, kind of the when opportunity hits desire and stuff like that. And so I just started calling myself a sound designer, met a couple I never even met a sound designer, met a bunch of them. They were super awesome and taught me a bunch of stuff. So I was like, hey, cool. Like, I'm a sound designer now. And like, I just started doing it, like, oh, you're a filmmaker, you need a sound designer. I'm a sound designer. So I kind of figured it out as I went along. Then I became like a sound designer, and then I started calling myself, I've always made music, but I've never kind of considered myself a composer. And like, I started calling myself a composer like a year ago. Cause I was asked to like,
I still haven't crossed that bridge yet.
Yeah.
Come on,
just
man.
do it. Just call yourself a composer.
I
literally, the first time I uttered the words, I'm a composer, was about a year ago. And I have 2 films right now at Sundance that I composed. So it's just like, it works.
I think when I have a film at Sundance, I'll call myself that.
No, do it. You
don't, man.
Anyway.
I'm in this same boat. I didn't even call myself a composer. I've called myself many pretentious things over the course of time, but I didn't even call myself a composer, and I was thinking about becoming, and then Hulu called me, and I composed a whole season of a show. So it's it really
what
is
show
the
was
dream. The show's called Kindred.
Okay, I'm not
It was on
familiar with
Hulu.
that
Came out last year.
Okay.
But
Yeah, like going back to like what you were saying about like the just putting stuff, like just throwing stuff at wall sees what sticks, like and as far as like titles go, like I learned this from my uncle, who I watched getting the adoration of playing the guitar. Everybody begged him to play and sing, so that's what I was like, I want in on that. I also, it wasn't just the attention, I was like, I want to do that. Like that just looks and sounds amazing. But like, I play drums, I play guitar, I play synth and a little piano, but like jack of all trades, master of none. I call myself a musician. Like I can trick people who aren't musicians into thinking I'm a pretty good musician. But like, if you know piano and you watch me play it, you're like, cool, dude, you can play some triads. Or whatever,
Yeah. No, that's that. I mean, that's a very good friend of mine. He got me to stop saying jack of all trades because it feels derogatory almost. But he calls me a dilettante, and that's also very pretentious. But it's and I didn't even really know the true meaning of the word. When he said it's like one who does what delights them,
Yeah.
And it's
that's
like
totally me then. Yeah.
Being a jack of all trades really is sort of like what it's given me is this ability to speak essentially like a little bit of every language. So that when you walk into a room, it's like I could go into a space with Josh, and I could sort of talk, modular. I could sort of talk about the qualities that I'm looking for because I've dabbled in
right
modular. I dabbled in playing guitar, so I'd never feel uncomfortable in a room with a really sick guitar player or or an incredible bass player, and I never feel out of place. I never feel out of place anywhere, and it's crazy because I think for a long time as a musician, I was worried that I was never going to become virtuosic. And what I realized, what happened eventually is that I got like good enough at so many things that the thing that I actually am always after, which is producing beautiful music, became quite good.
The sum of the parts, right? Yeah, I feel the same about like what I'm doing.
I can come to the center of the thing and sort of never feel like there's a lack of anything. And I'm not embarrassed to come like hire somebody who is I remember on my last record there's a that song Golden Brown, golden brown texture like sun,
such a beautiful song,
cool, like harpsichord thing, and I wanted something like that on a song, and I just like I couldn't fake it. I tried and I tried to fake it. I couldn't MIDI it. It just it needed that undeniable virtuosic human thing. And so I hired this guy, and I'm sad that I'm forgetting his name. I think his name was Xavier or something, but he was just like a session guy, and he came, and the first thing he played was perfect. It was it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it was perfect because to me I was just like, whoa, look at all that virtuosity. I don't want you to do another take, and he wanted to mess around. And so I let him, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I didn't know whether it was worse because he was overthinking it or because what I was desiring was just being impressed, being caught off guard by something.
Right. And you'd already seen it. Right.
Yeah, the general thing that you were looking for happened already.
Yeah,
I just wanted.
I think that if I was any better at harpsichord or clavinet, I would have sat there and like listened to 20 takes and deliberated and worried and whatever. It is the jack of all trades in me that was like, that's great. I'll take
Yeah.
that.
I've worked with other people too. And like, I learned like early on with working with people with my solo stuff, like, vocalists and whatnot, like I would give them basically like a brief, but I would just like also be like, but let's just do like, if you have ideas, let's just do it. Just whatever comes out, like, let's just do a bunch of takes and you just do your thing. And that's what I've always like had the most success with, because I mean, I love playing drums and guitar and bass and synth on all like everything. I did the whole thing. But it's undeniable that bringing another mind into it is going to elevate it. Not every time, but like if it's somebody that you're jiving with and stuff, like it's going to elevate it in ways, not that you couldn't technically do, but it's just, you literally never would have thought of it. Because you have this idea, especially if you're writing and producing this entire every instrument. It's so that sometimes it's good to get knocked out of it,
Totally.
From the standpoint of film, which is the medium I work in mostly. That's, I mean, everything is a collaboration, right? Even if like what I'm specifically doing isn't a collaboration in my department, So, but I've found that the best projects, the best directors, the best projects I've been involved with have very much been like, they pick the right people and let them do their thing.
Because they're picking them for a reason. Yeah, Robert A.K. Aubrey-Lowe has mentioned that. I had him on a while ago after he'd done the Candyman soundtrack, and
awesome.
That was something that he was speaking to, like as far as like what he's obviously like so freaking talented and got himself to a point where he can be choosy about what he takes on his work, and so like what's very important for him to be able to like have a good collaboration, but also just be like, but also like, you're hiring me for what I do, so let me do my thing.
And I think that sorry, go on.
I think that, I mean, I'm paraphrasing something we talked about a couple of years ago, so I hope I'm getting that right. There's freaking 300 of these things, so sometimes they all blur together,
No, but I think that's the way to do it. I mean, I think that's the way for a great collaboration. If unless you're an auteur and you're directing, like you have such a specific view,
right?
And you want everything to be a certain way, and those people are also, they're not always successful at that, because it's hard, because it's harder to work with people when you're telling them what to do if you give them the freedom. And I kind of wanted to interject earlier, and this relates to kind of what I'm about to say, but so the last thing I would ever accuse George of is being humble. That's not something that usually comes up in the same question, but by him saying that he's like a jack of all trades or something, he's being incredibly humble. He is such a fantastic musician on every instrument. He is, I think, I think the people, like, if you only know him from the Twin Shadow records or something, I mean, even though the musicianship is great on those, just, having known him for so long, jamming with him, just being in a room with him when there's a guitar, all that kind of stuff. If he doesn't think he's virtuosic, it's because he's comparing himself to people that are like the best in the world.
Right. Yeah.
So, because he is very, very talented in every aspect of music, and going on, kind of bringing it back to what your point was, is that I am kind of like, I am not that, like I'm very much like, so when I get hired, to score something, or it's like, this is my thing. Like, can't really it's like, like if you want this, like I can, like, I'll take notes, obviously, but like,
you've listened to my stuff, right?
Exactly. I'm like, if you want this, I got you. Like, if you want like something else, I could recommend plenty of other people,
Right.
I mean, obviously, any collaboration, you take note and you do the best of your ability. And I think George, what he's, this is my interpretation of what he's saying, is rather than a jack of all trades, is I'd call him versatile, because he can do so much, that he is so technically and creatively proficient at so much that he has to decide what to do. I don't have to decide what to do. I can only do what I do. So it's
right.
George
Yeah,
has
that.
the whole spectrum of music to choose from, and so he has to make a decision on which lane he wants to go in. And that's so I don't think he's a jack of all trades. I would call him versatile. So sorry,
Well,
George.
and I think like to tie that back
the
in,
lack of humble moment.
tie that back into something you were talking about earlier, George, is like just how like, in the 80s, 90s, everything was so genre defined and definitely put in like categorized in boxes. But and one thing I totally agree, something that I like more about now is those lines are more blurred. And I think it opened up an opportunity for people like, like you, and like how I would describe myself as like, I can do a bunch of different things. And I've made doom metal tracks, and I've made fucking like ambient, like 20-minute just fucking, like it just kind of depends. And I think in the 90s, if I was releasing records, that would be something that somebody would be like, hey, this is confusing. Like people like this. Why are you doing this? And now I feel like that just doesn't fucking matter anymore.
Yeah, totally. I think people really forget that, like whenever there's lots of money being made, and no matter how creative and great it looks, it's being driven by and carefully put together by people who need the categorization so that they can
sell it,
pimp it out to the nth degree.
Yeah, totally.
I constantly think about, I was listening to the Deftones White Pony record the other day on a walk, and I was just like, hidden, man, like it's really? A god.
I got a white pony. Really? It's covered up, but it's like kind of showing through. But I have a red. It's a red white pony. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, huge Deftones fan.
I was just listening to that record, and I'm just like, it's funny because I felt very validated when I had for years I had this whole argument with people. I'd be like, Deftones is more Tool than any other thing, but they're like Tool, but they're into like you could tell somebody was listening to like Prince and Joni Mitchell and blah blah blah, and
it's
then
like Tool
really
plus The Cure plus like Radiohead plus it's just like this mashup.
And then it was so validating to see like a documentary about how much Tool was an influence on them. Mm-hmm. But when I listened to that record, I'm like, and I listened to the first track, that back to school track, and I always, since I was a kid, I felt, and even though I love that track, I always was like, that's like the oddball song on that record. It feels like it wasn't supposed to be there. And then I find out that it wasn't supposed to be on there. Yeah. And it was like totally like an industry, like it was the label being like, we need a little of that rap rock.
We need a rap rock thing. Yeah, totally.
And sure, they did that on the previous record, and sure, they could do that well, but you could just tell like they made this like perfect piece of art, and somebody had to like get their pound of flesh. And it just like, that record exemplifies what happens when a band truly is about hybridity, a band that is truly about, they become greater than the sum of their parts because there's a lot of parts.
Totally.
To it.
Yeah.
It's a huge mix of things. It's it's Creole. It's
totally. Yeah.
And what happens is so much, even now, like it's nostalgia for something that people either didn't experience. And I think, around our age group, we didn't experience the height of the record industry. So we spend a lot of our careers being like, oh man, like, and I think what happened honestly to indie music or indie rock and anything that got like labeled chill wave or whatever.
Garden State.
What's that?
Garden State.
Garden State. Yeah.
Ground Zero.
Totally. And what happened was that they were trying to like go back to the old way of boxing it up, but there wasn't enough money. There wasn't enough, there wasn't enough of a platform that was like, well, everybody's definitely here. It's like the myth to all of us musicians who were like, oh, we like live and die on Pitchfork. Like that was also a fucking huge myth, you know, that not that a very small bubble was bought into. And we all got told that these things mattered, rather than just like really rejecting the genre, really rejecting categorization, and really stretching ourselves to be whatever we wanted to be whenever we wanted to be. We sort of played that game and saw it like sort of crawl across some sort of shitty finish line, and it just sucks, you know. It just sucks. And you know, but I'm happy and I'm proud to be living at the time that we're living in, because we're getting to see how little that matters, and how you just have to touch people with your music. That's it, you know, like that's it. That's all there is. And it has to find a context within their lives, not within some like godly image of yourself. And, you know, it's why I sort of really started to, and I've participated in sort of trying to make myself a heightened image. But I really sort of reject that these days, because it's just like, we don't need any more gods. And, you know, greatness is
I love
apparent.
this. I've been thinking about this a lot, like how like it sucks, because it's like, I don't think it's ever been super easy to make your living as a musician or an artist really at all. But I think like this whole idea of, you know, rock star, and, you know, like the biggest stars in the world, like you have Taylor Swift and Beyonce, right? Like they've been famous for a very long time. Like, and yeah, we get new people popping up, but I think that's on its way out. And it's becoming so much more of like little mini ecosystems of like super niche sub genres and stuff. And you're maybe not making a bunch of money and playing to millions of people, but like if you're like actually like emotionally connecting with 1,000 people worldwide, you can actually manage interacting with 1,000 people worldwide, and it becomes more community like. And that's one thing that really draws me to the modular like community, is like the idea of rock stars. Like, good luck being a rock star with modular, you know? So like you don't have that, but I totally like participated in all. I
nominate
all of
Josh
that
Ascalon.
Stuff.
Yeah, right. That's why I have that's why right now the music industry is the best, because I got the best record label.
So I was gonna say we're 10 minutes away from an hour and we haven't even got to your collab, but I want to just drop one piece of Deftones trivia knowledge, just because I don't know, I need to, but like, so that White Pony, when it first, like the very first time it was released on CD, it was black. It wasn't the gray with the White Pony, it was a black CD, and Back to School Mini Maggot or whatever wasn't on that CD, and they like repressed a bunch like not long after, or maybe they did them at the same time, maybe that was I don't remember, but I remember having the black one and listening to it as a full piece, because it starts with that really slow like, and it builds to this thing. But it's funny, like back then, you know, 8th grade Timmy, who had fucking gelled hair that was hard as a rock and fucking ball-bearing necklace, you know, he wanted the Mini Maggot version. I was bummed about it, you know, but now looking back, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't, because I did get to experience the whole album as I think it was intended to. To be, I mean,
I still rock out to Back to School, you know, it's like,
it's I mean, they're good at what they're good musicians. Like, if I had to listen to a rap rock song, it's gonna be that. But like, it's funny.
Go ahead.
The bands that get like lumped, like they were lumped in with so many bands that are now kind of like cringy, because of just the time and place. And I like, this is another more obscure one, but like, you know, post Nirvana, you know, late 90s, like alternative, everybody with a flannel shirt getting a record label. you know, there was alternative. And I think there were a handful of bands that got lumped in with all of these, like, now kind of cringy, cheesy ones. And I have to just say, for the record, that Harvey Danger is more than a one-hit wonder. Fucking fantastic band. All of their albums are fucking awesome. So
agreed.
Well, all right, so we have 8 minutes. Let's hear this collab. Like, you just mentioned the record label. This is the whole reason we got together.
Well, you know,
better. I know.
Everyone's going to be really bored with those last 8 minutes. But here it goes anyway.
I wasn't trying to,
no, I basically, you know, I spent the last 14 years or so doing the music industry, song and dance. I've done it all, from starting off on a very small label, Terrible Records. Shout out to Ethan and Chris. And then moving to 4AD, and then moving off of 4AD to Warner Brothers, and then going fully independent and doing distro deals and stuff like that. The whole entire experience, it was best, of course, when I first started, and then got worse and worse and worse. And it is that typical story of sort of like, you see what more money gets you. It just gets you, it buys you more posturing money that you have to pay back. And I wanted to create an outlet for myself, for my music, and possibly for my friends. And basically, like, I've been watching Josh for almost 15, 16, maybe 17 years now.
Yeah.
I've been watching him obsess for that long. And he's, of all my friends who play music, he's the one person who, even though his output, I'm gonna tell him that his output needs to be greater, but he knows that, and he's gonna.
I've got a friend like that too. Yeah.
Because Josh put out a solo record, a Josh record, a long time ago, and it was one of my favorite records. And I was just like, I thought it was criminal, honestly, that that Pitchfork wasn't, you know, going down on him, because or any, like, it just didn't and Josh, forgive me, but I wanted that record everywhere. It was just this beautiful sort of like juggernaut of a synth record. It sort of reminded me of a Matthew Deere record, but like kind of heavier, and just I don't even know. Anyway, it was one of my favorite records. And I have so many friends, our friend Noel and Hooray for Earth, and so many people throughout the years where I've wanted to see more output from them and more support for them and more eyeballs on their music, even if their music is sort of non-commercial or odd or whatever. I think these are people who are like dedicated practitioners of sound. And I just thought, you know, Josh told me about his record, and he played me some stuff, or he sent me some stuff. And just immediately I was just like, it's sort of a vanity label. I don't have any big clout. I don't have anything, but anything to get one extra eyeball on Josh's music is my pleasure, and my mission is to just turn people on to things that have quality, where you're just like, this person is not pretending to, they're not like me when I was with walking around school with the guitar. They're not pretending to be a musician. This is a person who's dedicated their life, regardless of the fact that it makes no money, regardless of the
love
fact
of the game. Yeah,
exactly. A complete love of the game. And when I tell you that my most sacred memories of Josh is like watching him play. He had this MS-20 that was the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. It had.
I was gonna say I spy an MS-20. Do I spy two MS-20s?
Look at these keys. Look.
Oh wow, that's beat shit. Whoa.
Yeah, it's looked this bad.
Perfect,
it's looked this bad for 20 years.
For the listeners, he just held it up and it's like 4 or 5 keys are either gone or busted in half.
Yeah. But watching Josh actually work the little patch bay on that thing and work the patch bay in our studio, which we hand wired ourselves back in the day. And with our dear friend Damon Dorsey, and the amount of dedication just made me want to help Josh release this record. So, and that's why we're here, really, to talk about Josh and his music.
Yeah. I think that highlights kind of this theme we've been hitting on over this whole chat. And I think when, I don't want to say like genuine, I don't want to put these 4-letter words on it, but like, when it is like a love of the game thing and it is just for the sake of creating what you think is good art and trying to share it and hope that it finds the people who are that will enjoy it. I think that's like, as I've gotten older and started shedding these ideas of what rock star is and what do I call success with what I'm trying to do, like, I find myself just leaning heavier and heavier in that direction of just doing it. It's more like, I love the process of doing it. I love talking to people about it. I love like collaborating with people about it. And you just find that at the bottom of it, it really is like a community and it's an interpersonal connection. Cause like, what is art? It's a way of self-expression, really. Like, I mean, when you're a kid, maybe you want to do it because you want to be, Kurt Cobain or whatever. But like, I think a lot of us get into it because it feels like it's like there are tracks that I feel like I could maybe ramble to you for an hour and a half to try to tell you about like my worldview and who I think I am and what the world is. But like, if I made you a playlist, I feel like that would be more accurate. So would you want to just listen to 30 minutes of my music and you could skip the whole rambly thing,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm rambling right now.
To that point, it's like, I think for me, it took, so that record that George was mentioning, like previously that I did, I guess that would have been like 2015, 2016. I think it's like, I had expectations then. Like I was like engineering. Those are dangerous. Exactly. Totally. Especially when it comes to your artistic endeavors. I was engineering and producing out of our studio. I was paying the bills, but I had seen George go out there with Twin Shadow. We've known each other since Twin Shadow didn't even exist. It's like I see, all of our friends, like Alan Palomo of Neon Indians, one of our good friends. Like we had all these friends that like that we knew, and I was seeing them just like tour the world, and they'd come back to New York, and we'd hang out, and like so I made a record, and I was like, yeah, I'll just I'll be like these guys, right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
And it's like I didn't realize that like my taste, like I did exactly what I wanted to do, precisely, but like at the time I didn't grasp the fact that like, oh, like this doesn't really have commercial appeal, like, you know what I mean? And so it's like and George, you were always telling me, like, you would just randomly text me something about how much you loved it, and it would always make me feel good because there are people that heard and loved it, and I get like every once in a while I'll get like hit up on Instagram by someone in like England. They're like, like they apparently they say whether they compare things to that record all the time, and like and meanwhile I just like we had a full live band or stuff like that, and I just like I didn't like immediately get the response I wanted, so I just like quit. Like I was just like, I'm done with this. and I was disappointed, and I felt like I failed, even though I was very proud of what I did. But and then it took me a while to and it honestly wasn't until I had like a stable career doing sound design for film, and again, and I use all my synthesizers in sound design. So it's like it's still always doing what I'm doing. And then, then started composing and stuff like that. Then it's like when I had stability and when I had I felt like I had a career, I was just like, I feel like making an album, and I just made like exactly what I wanted to make. It didn't matter. I didn't care if anyone liked it. It's just like the fact that George liked it, I was like, enough. Like I've done my job, and even like that's kind of also
that's not enough, Josh.
Whatever, but but even like the way that because George started Shri Shri. We didn't even mention the name of your label. For
I was
himself.
gonna say, well, we'll do a full plug section here at the end, and I'll put links and stuff in the show description.
Did I not
so people
mention
can check
it?
Yeah. Shri Shri Records coming at you. No, but like because he had obviously developed it for himself. I think in his mind thinking maybe he'd someday release other artists, his friends and stuff. And I happened to be the first artist. And he like straight up the first time we he called me, he's just like, I don't have any money. I mean, not you don't have any money, but like I said, the label doesn't have any money. I'm like, I don't care, and it was just like, and we basically had this talk and I was just like, listen, man, like, this is just like fun for me. Like I just did this because I wanted to do it. Like if you want to do this, if you want to put out my record, let's do it. If at any point this becomes not fun, then we're doing it wrong. So like, let's just continue. Like, it just has to be, fun. It has to be like something we want to do. Cause like, we don't need to do it. Like we're both in positions to like not need to do this,
taking the necessity out of it as far as like, I need this to do well, or I don't like live in this house anymore. Like, I mean, that kind of pressure could be, inspiring and make people have more drive. But like, I think taking that away will definitely like, free up a lot of your bandwidth, and that bandwidth can be used for, better, creative expression. I did the same. I didn't even have really a name to go off of. I was just like, I want to start a label, and I called it Self-Center Records because I was like, I'm just going to release my stuff. And then I had some friends, same thing, called them like, hey, I'll release this for you digitally if you want, but I have no money. So, and I had like a handful of friends, and but then I started doing this with the intention of hoping that comes back someday, but who knows? But, so give me all the plugs, because we are over time, and I know, George, you got to get going because you got other stuff.
Yeah, I got to run. I'm actually producing a. Speaking of jumping all over the place, I'm producing like they're kind of like a band who is like kind of like half Rammstein, half Nine Inch Nails.
Oh, whoa! Okay.
And they're coming over very soon.
I'm so
nice
to hear this.
They're called Patriarchy. They're amazing. Check them out. Okay, here's the plugs. On my end, I am Twin Shadow, and I will have a record coming out probably around March, and you're the first to hear it. So this is
okay, right on, sweet. I'll take the Sclusy.
Take it. I don't want to give it to anybody else. I don't care anymore.
You say that so like
NPR is gonna.
You say it so pessimistically, whatever. But I know like you've
been through it.
But it's you're not saying it pessimistically. You're saying it in the best way possible. Like like in the most like, in my opinion, correct way possible, as you should approach it, like that's what, because I'm just sorry, George, I don't mean to keep you, but like we were talking the other day, and like he was talking about producing. He's like producing like 4 or 5 artists right now. He's and again, maybe he's become humble. I don't know. I've known him for 15 years. He used to not be. But and I'm like, wait, don't you have a record you need to finish? Like, and he's like, oh yeah, it's done. I was like, well, hey, why haven't I gotten the link? Which I was pissed off, which I still didn't get the link, by the way. But anyway, but I loved that. Like, I feel like at other parts of his life or our peers' lives that were in his position, where they were popular artists, that people expected their records, they like, with me, no one, it's like whatever. But with people that when they put out a record, people listen to it automatically, you know? And I thought that I thought the fact that he was being so nonchalant about it, I was like, you're in such a good place, man. Like, to be honest with you, because I think that's the best place to be. You know, it's just like,
I think
maturity,
it's because I
right?
just really I really believe in the music now, whereas before it was so like, is anybody gonna like it? And now I'm just like, this is what I
Dude, isn't that a good feeling?
You know?
I think that's part of like the goodness. I got a little trickle down turning 40 before 40 because my wife's 2 years older than me, and I feel like I've like soaked up some 40 vibes, even though I'm not quite there. But like that is part of like getting older, is just like the freedom you allow yourself to just fucking just do what you want, be yourself. And because like the trying thing is, people have radars, and that comes, you know, and that gets mixed in with the sauce, you know?
Totally. I mean, it's, you know, it's not about being effortless. But it is about some sort of like flow, I guess. You know, it is some sort of like letting life carry you where it needs to carry you, you know? But anyway, plugs. So I will have a record coming out.
Big announcement, Twin Shadow.
And then we have released Josh's incredible 3-part record called A Day in the Life of a Mind on Cherie Cherie Records. That's my label. Cherie Cherie is a callback to my favorite song ever written by the band Suicide.
Shit.
Song Cherie. And I think that's all the plugs I got. Josh, anything?
You've got your
you
album.
know, you know, I got an album out on Cherie Cherie Records.
Josh is in the works, but Josh, give him links.
I mean, you sent me a bunch of links that I know I can't like share with anyone, but you have a lot of stuff that's like bubbling up right now, right?
Websites and all that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, if you want to find me at Josh Ascalon, JOSHASCALON. That's once again no. This I got a website, joshascalon.com, which really features most of my film stuff, and I probably don't highlight it enough. My Instagram is just more me messing around with synths and doing builds and stuff like that.
Okay.
And, so the record, obviously, I think your audience would be hopefully interested in. The feedback from people that would be necessarily into it has been great.
I like the teaser video for it too. Is really cool.
That was all George directed. George is also really cool. A director. So
I'll put links to all of the stuff we've mentioned today. Quick
plugs as that. Sorry, I got some films, and if I don't know when this will post, but actually right now at Sundance, the Bleacher, directed by this directing company called Magic Society, which is just one of the most interesting, fantastic, animated experience. One of my favorite projects I've been a part of, and also a project called The Rainbow Bridge, directed by Dimitri Simakis, who is probably best known for being part of Everything Is Terrible. Of like
that was great. That was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Rad. Yeah. So, and I, sound designed and scored both of those. The Rainbow Bridge I scored with Dimitri because he's a closet modular dude too. And he's also just the most fantastic person in the world. I also have
get him on the show for me.
Oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I'll call him. He's at Sundance right now, where I should be, but I'll text him and tell him that right afterwards. He would love that. Yeah, he would absolutely love that. And then I have, again, depending on when you're this Saturday, whatever the date, I have at International Film Festival in Rotterdam, a film that I sound designed, did the original score, directed by Amanda Kramer, narrated by Debbie Harry. It's called So Unreal. And it's really kind of like the only way I could really describe it is it's an Adam Curtis-esque like essay doc about it's almost entirely footage from sci-fi movies. basically up until like The Matrix is like kind of like the pinnacle. And it's kind of like an essay in which written by Amanda, the director, and narrated by Debbie Harry. You know, I don't have to explain who that is. And kind of like relaying things that were going on in sci-fi movies, relating things that were going on in sci-fi movies from, you know, way back and mostly in the 80s and 90s up into The Matrix, and how it kind of like what ramifications and what it was reflecting in society as far as our anxieties about technology and stuff like that. It's really, really an amazing project.
Right on.
It was just like a dream project for me because like, you know, I get to sound design like, you know, like there's like parts of Tron, you know, that, like,
yeah.
Obviously, like the sound design I used, but like there was parts where we didn't use the sound design, and I was like, you know, doing Buchla Tron stuff, and yeah. So it was cool, and so
your name's in the credit with Debbie Harry, so that's pretty sweet. So
yeah. So
well, dudes, I thank you so much for your time. It's like, it's always a little chaotic doing two people, but this was fun as hell. It was awesome to meet you. And yeah, I'll put links to everything in the show description. So thanks again for joining me.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim, man. Tim. You're great.
All right, that's our show. Thank you so much to this week's guests. Links to all of their stuff in the show description, as well as links to all of our lovely sponsors: Novation, After Later Audio, Signal Sounds, Patchworks, After Later Audio, For a Mess, Expert Sleepers, Knobula, and thank you to Bastel for sending me out that Neo Trinity. It is amazing, and they might be on an episode coming up here soon to talk all about it. Don't forget to sign up to support PodMod on Patreon if you want to be made aware of when I post the stuff that I'm going to give away. Next week, I'm going to be giving away 6 different boxes full of all sorts of cool gadgets, and that pretty much wraps up all the business. Now, let's get into that track that I showed you guys last week and see what kind of progress I've made on it. And since I was messing around with the Neo Trinity and my Keanu Matrix mixer, why don't I make this week's secret words, plural, blue pill. Until next week.